I'm Philip Brown. I'm the Secretary of the United Nations Association Coventry branch. And today is the 5th of June 2020, which is World Environment Day. So let me share a screen and we'll talk about World Environment Day. So World Environment Day is being organized by the United Nations, and every year they run this event with different themes, but this year the theme is biodiversity. So a concern, it says here, that is both urgent and existential. Recent events, from bushfires in Brazil, the United States and Australia, to locust infestations across East Africa, and now a global pandemic disease, demonstrate the interdependence of humans and the webs of life in which they exist. But do we really know its importance? Maybe our diversity trivial quiz will help. So in a minute, we're going to have a look at this trivial quiz. But before that, let's just come back to this top thing here. So this year, World Environment Day was originally going to be hosted by Colombia with the help of Germany. And they're obviously going to have lots of different people taking part. And in December 2019, Anga Anderson, who's the executive director of the United Nations Environmental Programme, said 2020 is a year for urgency, ambition and action to address the crisis facing nature. It's also an opportunity to more fully incorporate nature-based solutions into global climate action. Each year, World Environment Day is a powerful platform to accelerate, amplify and engage people, communities and governments around the world to take action on critical environmental challenges facing the planet. So the United Nations Environment Programme is the key body within the UN which promotes this day and does a lot of other stuff to promote the environment. So it's UNEP, and this is their page about the World Environment Day for this year. Okay, so obviously the plans have changed and there won't be that big event. So lots of things are happening online instead now. I just want to go back to this original welcome page, because there are two things on here that we're going to have a look at. Or maybe more, actually. One of them is this quiz. And it might be a good idea if we start off with that to see if we know anything about the environment. Global wildlife trafficking is a lucrative criminal activity. What is currently the most trafficked mammal in the world?
I would say leopard, but could be that I'm wrong.
Leopard, pangolin, lemur, or great ape? So we've got one vote for leopard. Pangolins are small animals that live in the Brazilian rainforest.
Could be the great ape too, if you say about trafficking, because I don't know. I'm between the leopard and the great ape.
Okay. And Roxana's
That could be damn wrong.
chicking it out. She's not voting.
I don't think it's any of those, to be honest.
Oh, come on. It's going to be one of them. What do you think it is then?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Can I just take a vote out?
I tell you what, the most trafficked mammal in the world is human beings, is the most trafficked mammal in the world. But I think they're talking about wild mammals.
Okay, let's go for the first one.
Leopard.
Yeah.
Which is like a lion, a spotted lion. I'm going to go for pangolin.
Yeah, I considered that one first because
I think it's one of the small ones because trafficking these big animals is a lot more difficult.
Okay, let's go for
pangolin.
A lemur is also a fairly small animal, isn't it? I think.
Lemur, yeah.
Of the plants grown for human consumption, what percentage is pollinated by animals? So, you know, there are two ways of pollinating plants, either by insects or other animals that move around, or by the wind. Now then, wheat and other grasses are normally pollinated by the wind. I think there are some grasses which have flowers, but most grass and a lot of the plants that we grow, wheat and barley and all those kind of plants, are grasses, so they're pollinated by the wind. It's flowers that are pollinated by
insects. Yeah.
And so my suspicion is we need to work out which percentage of these of our plants are flowery and which percentage are grasses. They don't actually say, is it percentage by number of hectares, by weight of crops? They don't really, it's not a very clear question. And it's obviously a very difficult question, isn't it?
I think it's in terms of how many types of plants, how many different species of plants are being.
It could be anything, couldn't it? Really?
Yeah.
It's very general, I would say.
Sorry.
Did you hear me?
No, I heard you say something. What did you say?
Yes, I said that it's very general to ask this, like what percentage of what? Because
it's almost impossible to guess, isn't it? I would say it's less than 85% because.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, rice is also a grass, isn't it? So that won't be. I don't think that's pollinated by animals. That would be wind pollinated. So
I would go for a lower one, to be honest.
I think it's lower than 85.
Yeah, because most of the plants that we that are good for human consumption are pollinated by the wind. So I would go for...
No, not necessarily. I mean, if you think of most vegetables other than wheats and rice and stuff, so all trees, I don't think there are no trees which are wind pollinated. All root vegetables, carrots and all those things, potatoes, all of those are pollinated by animals. So fruits and vegetables, apart from the wheats and rices, I think if we go for a compromise, so somewhere like 65, which is in between, we're pretty sure it's not 85. Next question: what percentage of the land's plant is covered by the planet's land is covered by forests? Between 20 and 50. Forests, the mountains have typically got forests growing on them because nothing else can grow on mountains. But in low land, a lot of the forest has been cleared. So you've got the Amazon, and there's forest in Africa as well. Well, and in mountainous regions of Asia too. Obviously, when people first arrived first evolved, it would have been pretty high. It would have been probably 60-70% of the land. There is some land where forests can't grow, it's too cold. The steppes of Russia is a typical example, or up in the Arctic and stuff like that. So there's lots of areas where you can't have forests. And South Antarctica, obviously, you can't. Deserts, there's lots of deserts So I can understand why they're looking at low numbers. I mean, they're starting with 20, so they're telling us it's a lowish number.
Why don't we try at 30%?
50?
No, 30.
30, yeah, 30 is compromise, isn't it? Approximately how many million people live in the Amazon rainforest? Between 23 and 63 million.
A lot, though.
A lot, yeah. Because
I would say 22, but could be more.
Well, they're saying that a lot of people, disproportionately people live in forests, and the Amazon rainforest is huge. And I mean, there's I don't know how many countries have got part of the rainforest. I would say it's a pretty high number. I would guess 63. You think a lower number?
Okay.
Shall we compromise with 43 then?
Yeah.
That's the best.
What I want to do now is look at this. Oh, is there anything else? Yeah, so this page has got quite a lot of stuff. But what I want to do is look at this video. Is on the main website for the World Environment Day. It's also on YouTube. And it raises some interesting points. So that's why I want to show it to you, and then it's only just over a minute long. So I'll show it and then we'll talk about what it says.
Zoonotic diseases are these diseases which are shared between animals and people. It's very likely that COVID-19 came from animals. We haven't really seen anything like this in our lifetime, which has affected nearly everywhere, every country in the world. If you then remove some of those hosts and you only create a monoculture of animals, then they are likely to be the transmitters of the disease.
So the words are spoken by somebody called Bernard Bett, who's an author of a Frontiers report. He says zoonotic diseases are diseases that are shared between animals and people. It's very likely that COVID-19 came from animals. Well, there was some controversy, wasn't there? The Americans were trying to make out the Chinese had created it in their lab. The Chinese were trying to make out the Americans had created it. The evidence that why he says it's very likely, as far as I understand it, is that when you look at the DNA of COVID-19, it doesn't look like it would look if it had been manufactured by human beings. Researchers led by Shan-Lu Liu at the Ohio State University say there is no credible evidence of genetic engineering, as reported in Emerging Microbes and Infections. The virus's genome has been sequenced, and if it had been altered, we would expect to see signs of inserted gene sequences. But we now know the points that differ from bat viruses are scattered in a fairly random way, just as they would be if the new virus had evolved naturally. So no scientists believe, I don't think, that it was created by people in a laboratory. However, we don't know how it got from its original source to men. He then goes on, we haven't really seen anything like this in our lifetimes, which has affected nearly everywhere, every country in the world. Although zoonotic diseases are shared between animals and people, keeping nature and species diversity intact protects us against pandemics. So the argument they're making here, he's making, is that we need biodiversity to stop us getting pandemics. When I was watching this, my first thought was, well, surely if there's more species, well, what do you guys, I mean, he hasn't justified this statement.
Yeah, he hasn't been really clear in...
We'll go through what the justification is in a minute, but there is an argument that says that if we've got more diversity in nature, that protects us against pandemics. What's your response to this statement? Does that strike you as logical or reasonable or what? Because it struck me as odd. No?
I think it depends on the source of the virus as well.
Yeah, but I mean, in general, he's saying if we've got more diversity in nature, we've got less chance of having a pandemic. I mean, my reaction was, if there's more different species, different animals around, there's more chance of a virus evolving, because every species, is susceptible to different viruses. So there's more chance of evolution, and therefore it strikes me there'd be more chance of us having a disease that causes a pandemic. It just didn't strike me as being obvious why this was. So let's follow his argument.
I would argue about the practices in terms of like the food industry and how different countries kind of kill their livestock and serve the food, really. Mm-hmm. Because if you think about China and how this developed, it's clear that they did something wrong. But I'm just like looking into like the past. Was anything, I don't know, like such a pandemic going on just because of the wet markets in China?
What they think is that the disease came from one of the animals, one of the wild animals that were on sale in the so-called wet markets.
But the wild animal was killed. He was like dead.
Yeah, but not necessarily. There are some live animals there, but it could have been. We don't know. We don't even know what type of animal it was.
Yeah.
So what they think happened was that it originated in bats. That's the most likely source, because bats are susceptible to this type of virus, and their immune system can fight it, so they can. This virus, it doesn't kill them off, and so they survive. And they think a bat passed it on to some other species, which was then caught and taken to China for sale. That's what, and then somebody ate that, and that's how it passed on. That's what they think. So, you were talking about domestic animals.
Yeah, even domestic animals, yeah.
What are you saying about domestic animals?
Well, the fact that any government, or like it's just said, I don't know, the conspiracy around COVID-19 was that the governments were trying to kill the masses. So if you think about it, like how factories, how companies, they kill, like how they killed their like livestock, and how they I don't know, package it and how the whole process of killing, from killing to serving. I have too many ideas. That's why I'm like going around the subject. But yeah, they were saying it was a study made again by the United Nations in terms of like how veganism is gonna help stop. It's gonna help like stopping these diseases in the future.
Yeah. So that speaks of vegan, but I mean, if everybody was a vegan, we wouldn't be getting these diseases. That's true. But that's not his argument. His argument is that if there's more diversity, more different species in nature, we're less likely to have a pandemic. And to me,
no, I don't think it's a good.
That seemed illogical. So what I did was pursue this. Let's just follow through his argument. So, in some cases, high host species diversity can reduce disease risk. This is called the dilution effect. If there are lots of different species, then it can reduce the risk. And again, that to me seems the opposite of logical. If there are more species, there's more places where these diseases could originate, and therefore it would appear to me to increase the risk, but he's saying that it decreases the risk. So we're going to look at this idea of the dilution effect, because this is the major argument that they're using today to say we need diversity in the natural environment. It's the same text. And then if you remove some of these hosts and you only create a monoculture of animals, then they're likely to be the transmitters of the disease. We need to invest in a better scientific understanding of how human activity can affect potential future zoonoses. Well, that's true. I mean, so this dilution effect is a theory. It's one of several theories, which we'll come back to, but we need more research, and that seems to be true. Now is the time to appreciate the vital role of the health of our planet and to take immediate action to conserve nature. Well, I mean, that's got to be true, hasn't it? Because there's so many threats to us. And it's because we're polluting the planet and using nature for our own purposes. So that's his argument. So I did some research about the dilution effect just to check. And this is a paper that was published Stanford. This guy was at Stanford University. And it was published in the journal Ecology Letters. One of the most important ideas in disease ecology is a hypothesis known as the dilution effect. So in science, you get first a hypothesis, which is a kind of idea. Then when you get you then test your hypothesis by looking at the evidence or doing experiments. And if all the evidence agrees with your hypothesis, then it becomes a theory. And theories are believed by scientists until some other evidence comes along which disproves it. That's how science works. And then we get a new theory. Anyway, at the moment, it's not a theory, it's a hypothesis. The basic idea behind the dilution effect hypothesis is that biodiversity, typically measured by species richness or the number of different species present in a particular locality, is protective against infection with zoonotic pathogens, i.e. pathogens transmitted to humans through animal reservoirs. That's what the man said. So the more species you've got, the less the risk is for humans. The hypothesis emerged from analysis of Lyme disease ecology in America. And then it goes on to say, Lyme disease ecology is incredibly complicated, and there are a couple of different ways that the dilution effect can come into play, even in this one disease system. And I will try to render it into something easily digestible. Now then, other evidence that I found was somebody who wrote in the Royal Society's journal. It explains what the dilution effect is, and then he goes on to say, conversely, an amplification effect occurs when increased diversity is related to an increase in prevalence, which is what I was thinking. The more species you've got, the more possibilities you've got of different viruses evolving. We explore the conditions under which these effects arise. We introduce 3 potential metrics. So they've done some research, and at the end of their paper, I mean, there's lots and lots of mathematics in all this. Yeah, so he's saying that it's complicated. For example, many other examples of ecosystem dynamics and interplay may be found in the literature. Studies that include pathogens, factors such as climate change may alter the dynamics. There is broader need to study how infectious agents interact with ecosystems. So what he's saying is the same as the other guy. We need more research. And there's a paper here that says the dilution effect predicts increasing biodiversity to reduce the risk of infection, but the generality of this effect remains unresolved. So it seems to me that, and there's another paper, is the dilution effect true? Disease diversity interactions is one of the central questions in disease ecology. It has been hypothesized that species diversity is able to reduce pathogen transmission, i.e., the dilution effect. Although mounting evidence has been found for the dilution effect, it is still highly disputed whether the dilution effect generally occurs. It seems to me that for them to make this video and this thing about the dilution effect as being the prime argument seems a little bit, I mean, I can understand why they've done it, because it's topical, isn't it? We're in a pandemic, and they're trying to emphasize this dilution effect, because it says, it is arguing in a way, we've caused this problem ourselves because we are killing off species, reducing the diversity, and therefore increasing the risk of pandemics. And what we need to do to reduce the risk is let species, I mean, I can understand why they're making this argument, but I just wish they'd said that this is a hypothesis and not a proven fact, and he seemed to make out it was. What do you guys think?
I think for a video like that, to be honest, I would have loved to see a bit more of an explanation about the effect itself, because they talk about it, but they don't really go in depth. So not everyone will know what it means, and not everyone will just go ahead and research it as you did.
Yeah.
And I feel it's not straightforward. I feel like all these complex research papers or anything that is very complex is very hard to follow for just a individual who doesn't know about these things.
Yeah.
So I don't know. These usually what they do, they try to kind of break down the subject in many different areas, so everyone can be able to understand. So I agree with Roxana.
Yeah. I mean, they're obviously trying to make a point, aren't they? They're trying to make a point. This is UN Environment Day. The theme is diversity, and they're trying to say we need diversity to help us to fight against these zoonotic diseases.
Yeah.
I think it's well, it's only an argument. Okay, I mean, putting that argument to one side, then, what do you think about? So obviously, we know what biodiversity is. It's having lots of different species out in the wild, and we are killing off species at a tremendous rate by hunting animals, by selling them to like tigers and elephants' tusks and all those things. In general, what do you think about what humanity is doing to the natural world, and what should we be doing? Which is perhaps the important point of this day, is to say what how do we need to change, and if so, how should we change?
If we keep putting fires to buildings, and if we keep just destroying everything that we see, then I have no hope whatsoever, and we cannot change anything. I know I could come across as pessimistic, but there is no day or no year or no month that can raise as much awareness as we want and we need. I've seen that more and more people are so ignorant. For example, in my country, they're like stealing trees, forests. They're stealing, and no one says anything.
Yeah,
no one.
This is Romania, isn't it?
Yes, there's nothing. We have a ministry of like environment. We've had like, I don't know exactly how to translate it in English, but it's like the guard of the environment in Romania. The guard is not only, the ministry is the guard that should like take care of these, and it's not doing anything, and they're paid for it, right? So what for anyone else? Like anyone that doesn't know about anything like this. It's just like, okay, so the government needs to do something. I don't have to go and clean the beaches because it's not my problem. I need to go to work. And it's just a cycle of ignorance. And I don't know. I'm just looking into how can we raise awareness, but I lack of knowledge in that sense. So, yeah. I'm very disappointed.
Yeah, the situation is not brilliant in Romania. There are many ways in which you can create awareness, but I think you're already using the best one, Elena, your example. I think our example, how we present and what we do in front of the world, what we show, is what other people would take as an example. So that could be one way of...
But Roxana, would they actually take as an example? Or would they say, they are doing it, it's okay. I can do whatever. It doesn't affect me directly. It's okay. What happened in Russia yesterday? Are you serious? Are you serious? Benzene or like whatever oil is there in the water. Oh, that guy was fired. Putin fired that guy that did this.
Okay, and so just explain what happened in Russia yesterday.
I don't know. Let me see exactly. So 20 million. Let me see.
There was an oil spill, wasn't there, in the Arctic?
Oil spill, yeah. Like let me see. Let me actually be very accurate.
That they went into a state of emergency.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Putin declared state of emergency, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Arctic rivers turn red, as shocking video shows catastrophic. Let me see. Oh my God, I have an ad blocker. Sorry. Catastrophic scale of the environmental disaster after 20,000 tons of fuel. 20,000 tons of fuel. Are you serious? So we wasted fuel and we wasted the water. So, okay. Leaked from a Russian power station. Leaked in the water. Oh, order the state of emergency. Great. And how are you going to take that oil from the water? Or vice versa?
One of these.
Water from the oil. So how can, like, we don't have a lot of water remaining. I don't know who, my partner just received an email, no, not an email, but a message from Seventh Trent, the water supply here in Coventry, to use the water effectively. And obviously, it's happening. It's coming to an end. We don't have enough rain. We don't have enough anything to keep and maintain and clean and filter the waters. So we have in Pakistan, we have a city. I've been looking into a documentary. We have a city that has half and half. The rich people put perfectly good water for drinking, for human consumption, in the pool. And on the other side of the city, you have people who don't have water for 14 days. And water is so expensive, and they don't have it from anywhere. Like, there's nothing. So they're like literally, I don't know, drying. So we have this in a city. Yeah. No one cares. Rich people have the money to do whatever they think they can, and no one says anything about it, you know?
Let's go back. Let's go back to the issue of people chopping down trees in forests. So you've raised the way that that's happening in Romania. Obviously, it's also happening in Brazil, where President, what's his name, Bolsonaro, is actually supporting people to do that, so they can create farms for cows and sheep, and also I think there's mining going on. There's all sorts of illegal activity which he supports. So vast areas of the Amazon are disappearing, or alternatively getting burnt down. And what happens? They often clear the forest by burning the trees down. So that obviously reduces or increases the carbon dioxide, and reduces the amount of absorption of carbon dioxide. So all of that stuff is obviously a major thing. So we individually, what can we do as individuals? What can people in the West do to try and change the situation? I mean, when you go back to Romania, assuming you do, what could you do when you get back there?
I actually messaged the guards of the environment in Romania, and they told me to send my inquiries and my concerns to some emails, and it's going to be solved, because they said a lot of people are doing the same thing as me. I've been doing that. I have signed some petitions. I have connected with some people that are actually directly doing that, and they're now like going to the court to kind of fight with these people who are stealing the forests.
Right.
And we don't know about that. And so that's what I did.
Well, that's something positive, isn't it? That's good.
Yeah.
Isn't it? I haven't heard of anybody in Brazil taking Bolsonaro to court, but so taking action in the court is definitely one thing that people could do. unfortunately, it's limited to people who live in that country, isn't it? But even so,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess what they could do is raise money, because obviously that costs money. And if you're fighting against the government's got more money than any other organisation within the country. So it's obviously going to cost money to fight in court. But they could use crowdsourcing to raise money to run the court case against the government, and people from other countries could possibly contribute to that. So that's one thing people could do, is to take court action. That's good. Signing petitions. I mean, it might work if you got a democracy where they listen to petitions. So in the UK, if more than a certain number of people sign a petition to the government, they're obliged to, I'm not sure what the action is they take, they're obliged to do something. Same with local government. I'm not sure if in Brazil they would have a petition would make any difference to Bolsonaro. Nothing seems to affect.
It didn't even take a global pandemic in serious. I don't think they're going to start taking climate change, even though they should.
Yeah, and I think that at the moment, the global pandemic seems to most people to be far more important than climate change, even though, in my opinion, climate change is a far, far bigger threat. But nobody's talking. I mean, they've raised trillions of dollars to help get through the current financial situation. They need hundreds of trillions to get through climate change, but nobody's talking about that.
Yeah,
anyway,
I didn't mean it like COVID would be a more important aspect. I'm just saying that something that affected the states directly, people were dying, and they haven't taken it seriously. So I don't see how they would take something that is not affecting them directly in this moment. Does it make sense?
No, that's right. That's right. It seems a long way away, doesn't it? I mean, climate change doesn't seem to be affecting us today. And the biodiversity is the same thing. It seems a distant issue. But I mean, let's just go back. What can people do? We've come up with signing petitions, and what was the other thing?
I think it was going through the courts.
Oh, going through the courts, absolutely.
Yeah, if I could just make a point on that, I think what Elena's looking to do with the...
acting. Voting, yeah.
Yeah, I think just with what Elena's trying to do with the courts, I think that's probably the most effective solution. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of the agenda case in the Netherlands.
No, I haven't.
So that's probably one of the, in international law, one of the most famous and landmark cases, whereby about 880 something, almost 900 people, citizens of the Netherlands, they petitioned through the courts just to compel their own government to basically do more. And then the court, so this was in 2015, then the government appealed that decision. And then in late 2019, it was found that the government of Netherlands, just based on their emission rates and things along that line, were in fact doing a lot less than they should have been doing. So they were compelled to cut their emissions by about 25%. So I think just that act by the citizens was definitely quite impactful in a sense. And if more citizens started to rise up and petition against their own governments to do more, I think there's definitely a better chance instead of trying to take their own route. I think just collective action, if anything, could have been learned from the agenda case against the Netherlands. I think that's something that could be quite useful in the future.
Yeah.
Elena is doing quite well to go through the court of Romania as well. So, well done.
Okay.
I am wishing that. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry. I didn't want to interrupt. I am wishing that the people who are actually going to the court, because I'm just one of the people who are signing it, they're like kind of supporting them. But I hope the people who are actually going to the court, they're gonna understand that we need more than. I mean, there is a nature of things in Romania where people who have money, they can do whatever they want, and corruption is like kind of like the thing, not everywhere, but usually in terms of like stealing the forests. And I hope them people are gonna, I don't know, I just gonna succeed in the court. I see that there are like a lot of successes, but yeah.
Yeah, I'll send you guys a link from the agenda website into our WhatsApp group chat. Just a quick.
I'll put it on the video. So there's a page here. Romania facing legal action over destruction of Europe's last natural forest. So again, I'll put a link to that page on the video and on our website. Good. So that's two things then: petitions and court cases.
Thank you for the link.
What else can we, or ordinary people, do to fight against governments who are not taking what we think they should be, not doing what they should be doing to preserve the environment, or when they're actually doing the opposite of what they should be doing? What else can citizens do?
Protest.
I think there's quite a bit that they can do.
Yeah, I agree with protesting.
Yeah.
Peaceful protesting.
Yeah. I mean, so protesting. So, I mean, if you look at what's happening in the States, or about the Me Too movement, whenever it was, a couple of years ago.
What do you guys think of Extinction Rebellion?
Yeah.
Did that pushed it a little bit too far, or was that the attention needed to the conversation? Let's get everybody.
Well, it certainly raised the issue, didn't it? The thing about protesting is that other issues come along, and that issue is sort of forgotten. I mean, nobody's talking about Extinction Rebellion nowadays. So for a few weeks, it was the top of the agenda, but it died off. But certainly, if people protest, it makes them feel as if they're doing something, and it gets the media's attention. And then, you know, I mean, I think it probably did have some effect on government to realise that there were votes in it, because if there's all these people protesting, you know, and if the government is seen to do something, they're more likely to win votes, and if they're seen to ignore it, they're more likely to lose vote. So I think the other thing that people can do is vote, you know, for people who say they're going to do stuff to preserve the environment. So it's the green parties all around the world. Like in the UK, hardly anybody votes green. I think partly that's because of our voting system. It's first past the post system. And for a minority party, it's very, very difficult to win any seats. But other democracies have proportional representation. It's much easier for small parties to win that way. And so, you know, but I think voting ultimately is the way to do it, because once a party like that is in power, they can change the laws, and that decides how a society functions. And what we want to do is change the way that our societies function. So we're not destroying the environment, we're not killing off animals and reducing diversity, we're doing the opposite. And we're not burning all this petrol and creating greenhouse gases, we're doing the opposite. So, yeah, I mean, maybe it depends on having a working form of democracy. Like in the States, for instance, Trump got elected without having a majority of people voting for him. The majority for what's the name?
Hillary
Clinton. But because of the weird way that the president gets elected, he got in. And I think that, the first past the post system in the UK is an obstruction to having a real democracy where you have mixed voices. The problem with having smaller parties is it's often difficult to form a majority government. The reason the first past the post system has lasted here is that it's relatively easy to get a majority of people in parliament who can form a government. In many countries where they just cannot form a government because they've got lots of little parties. Anyway, so that's 3 or 4 things. We've got 4 ideas about what people can do. There are more things that people can do as well, like planting trees in their own gardens and stopping eating meat, or at least changing your diet, using public transport, walking instead of all those things people can do. And governments, I mean, within the UK, the government is currently giving money to support people to walk and to bicycle, and because they don't want people to use public transport at the moment. But those things, might help to change people's behaviour in the future. You don't know. People are going out buying bicycles like they've gone out of fashion. So maybe good things will come out of COVID in the end, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
Okay. Well, we've covered some different ground there. Do you think that was a useful and interesting activity to examine this dilution effect and biodiversity and think about whether it's a good thing or a bad thing? I mean, do you think biodiversity essentially is a good thing in any case, whether it helps stop pandemics or not? Or doesn't it matter?
Yeah.
Because at the moment we're killing off these species, and we just have monoculture, so sheep and cattle and plants, wheat and rice and stuff, and all these other species are just disappearing. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Biodiversity is always a good thing.
I tell you what's a bad thing about this monoculture. If there was a disease, a pandemic that affected cattle or sheep or chickens,
Exactly.
What people would have nothing at all to eat. Well, they'd still have plants, but I guess there could be disease. I mean, there are diseases that affect plants as well, aren't there? There's rusts and other diseases that affect plants, and just having monocultures is dangerous, and it leaves us open to risk. I mean, maybe one of the results of this pandemic is that governments will say we need to be prepared and we need to consider the consequences of all these monoculture animals or plant animals that we eat.
I mean, I don't know, even like the supermarkets and the butchers and everything, they don't really offer that much of background of where the animals come from, if they were happy or sad, because that matters a lot if you know, like obviously because that can actually develop some, if they are sad or something like that, they can develop some like weird stuff in them, and then the meat is not good to eat for human consumption. So I don't know, they don't really offer that. So I would suggest that one thing that companies and people even could raise awareness is just the background of the animals and things like that. I mean, we need to see what we eat.
I think that there are things like that. So the organic movement, I don't know if you have organic in Romania, but there's the organic movement here where they grow crops and feed animals without using artificial fertilizers and they try to keep it natural. With eggs, there are, what do they call them, where they've got eggs where the chickens, free range eggs, so the chickens are allowed to move out of, they're not kept in cages.
Yeah.
Battery farming of chickens, they're allowed to move around naturally, and those kind of products do exist in the UK, and they have a premium, so you have to pay more for them. So there is something about that, and there are the animal welfare standards within the UK are supposedly high. I mean, higher than most other countries, which is one of the reasons people didn't want to have a trade agreement with the United States, because the United States animal welfare is a lot lower, and people didn't want them shipping their animals here, which have been produced by having injections and by being treated badly and washed in chlorine and stuff like that. So, I mean, I think the UK has made an effort, and I think people care in the UK, but I'm not sure if that's general. And certainly if you're talking about Africa, I don't know, if you're struggling for food, I'm not sure. It's a whole different world, isn't it?
I think it's more than just the food as well sometimes. I don't know if you guys have seen that story earlier this week where that firecrackers were put into the elephant's mouth in India.
Yeah,
it just exploded and it died in the river. I think people need to be a lot more kinder to animals as well. So I think,
I've seen it.
Yeah, there should be a better, a bit of a PR campaign.
There was a thing even in Romania where they tortured kids. They tortured the dog. Like literally, they a lot of them, they were killing him. I don't understand. Why is this violence like very funny? Why do we make anyway? Let's I'm not gonna go into it because I'm getting sad. But yeah, it is. We are not kind to animals.
It might really stem from home life. Like maybe the kids themselves are being abused at home, and they're just looking for a way to deflect their own sort of emotions. So they just torture animals because animals.
All of them?
Vulnerable. Not all of them. Maybe in a few cases. Like I'm just trying to think of reasons as to why that could happen, because I don't really think humans, and especially kids, are born evil. So I think there must be some environmental impact in their lives, forcing them to do that kind of stuff, because it is horrible.
Yeah, it is horrible.
I haven't heard this story. So this is recent, is it?
It's a few days ago.
And where was it?
I think it was in India, and it was a watermelon. No, a firecracker was put inside of a watermelon, and it exploded inside the elephant's mouth, and it eventually just drowned in the river.
And the elephant was pregnant. The elephant was pregnant.
Oh yeah, I think that was the worst part about it.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Okay. Is there anything else we need to say about World Environment Day and biodiversity, or just World Environment Day?
World Environment Day. I think the theme of this year, well, it shouldn't be a theme in the first place, really.
A theme?
Yeah, like a thematic of biodiversity. It should be just World Environment Day. Everything about the environment matters.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, there's so many things that you could talk about. That's why they pick a theme. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think what we're going to do is leave it there. We've covered a bit of ground. We've got some ideas about what people could do. We've looked at a bit of science. And I thank you for your contributions.
No problem at all.
Thank you for making this happen.
Okay, and I will edit the video
It was a pleasure.
and publish it. Okay, guys.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Bye,
Come in.
guys.
Bye.
Bye, Roxana. Bye, Mohammed.
Sorry.